Welcome into this Week 6 edition of Buffalo Bills Weekly. He's Chris Brown, I'm Maddy Glab. In this week's episode, we'll give our thoughts on Buffalo's offensive identity, look ahead to another primetime matchup, and entrepreneur and Jets fan Gary V helps us break down this next matchup against the Jets in Week 6. Chris, back-to-back losses for the Bills, although Buffalo has faced 2 straight losses in every single season since 2019. Maybe this is just something the Bills need to get out of their system and it doesn't happen again?
That's what the players and coaches are probably hanging their hat on. Look, we've been here before. We usually have a little valley in our season each and every year, like every team does in the NFL. It's a long season. You're going to have good performances, poor performances. So hopefully this is their set of back-to-back losses and they get it corrected and move on.
There was a bright spot in last week's loss against the Houston Texans. It was the fact that the defense got it done without 5 starters. They've been without several starters throughout the entire season. It continues in Week 5. The defense had 2 takeaways in the fourth quarter to keep the offense in the game. Chris, what has impressed you about this unit's ability to make crunch time plays?
Yeah, well, getting Terrell Bernard helps, right? You get your defensive captain back in the lineup, and he makes an immediate impact with a fourth quarter interception deep in their own territory. They also had a turnover on downs, which took points off the board on a 4th down stop for Houston when they were deep in Buffalo territory. But I just think they're a very resourceful group. And as we say all the time, this system lends itself to letting backups come in and perform and make an impact because it's simple in scheme but very nuanced. So there are base rules for them to fall back on. So it enables them to play consistently down to down, series to series. And they really held the team in the game. They kept it a game for the offense to come back and hopefully try to help win.
On offense, this group went from a unit who was soaring in the first 3 weeks, spreading the ball out, leaning on the run game, scoring a lot of points, to an offense now in the last 2 games where they look disjointed and not on the same page. In the first 3 weeks, they were averaging more than 30 points per game. In the last 2, just 15 points per game. What is this offense's identity right now, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think the passing game needs a little bit of a reboot here. I mean, the everybody eats mantra is nice to hear, and you want to try to employ that, and maybe they did that very successfully through the first 3 weeks. But when you're playing better defenses, which the Bills have, especially from a coverage standpoint with Baltimore and then Houston and now the Jets, who are a good coverage unit too, I think you have to streamline who's getting the snaps on offense. And I think it's got to be players that have a comfort factor and a familiarity with Josh Allen. To me, maybe that's incorporating Dawson Knox a little bit more, Dalton Kincaid, and then you're talking about maybe incorporating James Cook a little bit more into the passing game because he is one of your most dynamic athletes on offense. He can get separation, and knowing they are a good cover unit in the Jets, I think that's step one. Yes, the run game still has to be part of it, but one thing that I've noticed through these first 5 weeks, they are running a ton on first down. Their first down pass rate right now is 30th in the league. I think you can use some play action pass on first down against the Jets to bust that tendency and take advantage of it, knowing the Jets are going to be coming downhill on first down based on those numbers.
You spoke of that passing game. Offensive coordinator Joe Brady said the passing game was off against the Texans. He said they were behind the chains. If you look at third downs, that's been a bugaboo for this team in the last couple of weeks. They are just 6 of 27 on third downs in the last 2 weeks. That's just converting 22% of the time. Sean McDermott, our head coach, said they need to do a better job of being on the same page.
Yeah, and really third down's been a problem all season long. I mean, even in the 3 wins, they didn't have a high conversion percentage, and that's why they're 25th in the league right now. Let's not forget, this is a team that led the league in third down conversion percentage each of the last 2 years, right around 50%. So that has to get better. I think it's trying to get into better third down situations. So be better on first and second down, so you're more of those 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 3s. I mean, Coach McDermott said it after the Houston loss. He said our average on third down was 3rd and 7.
Yes.
It's got to come down to make conversions easier, because if you have 3rd and shorts, even if you're passing, now your pass protection doesn't have to hold up as long. Josh can get the ball out quicker because the routes aren't as deep. So you got to get in more favorable third down situations to convert more of them.
Don't go anywhere because there's still a lot left in this show. Coming up, we'll preview the Week 6 matchup against the Jets. New York has a new head coach. We're talking about it next.
When we return, Maddy Glab interviews serial entrepreneur Gary Vaynerchuk in this week's episode of You Heard, and then later catch the press conference highlights in Soundbite Roundup.
What's up, everybody? It's Gary V, and you just heard.
Welcome into another episode of You Heard, where we feature athletes, celebrities, and entrepreneurs speaking about their NFL fandom. In the latest episode, we have Jets fan and serial entrepreneur, chairman of VaynerX and CEO of VaynerMedia, Gary Vaynerchuk, joining us. Gary, thanks so much for taking the time to discuss this big Bills and Jets game coming up. We're going to start with the Jets. When did you become a Jets fan?
August 1982. And the Jets went to the AFC Championship game in 82, Maddy, and I thought I was a genius and I had it figured out. And unfortunately, we have not gone to a single Super Bowl in my lifetime. I've watched every single snap in real time, no DVR, no radio. I've watched them physically on TV or in person, including the devastating 2015 loss at Buffalo. I was there. I went to every single game that year in 2015, all 16. And so you're talking to a real diehard.
I know it's early in the season, week 6. It's a long NFL season. Everybody says it. But when you start to face opponents in your division, it matters. It doesn't matter if it's week 1. It doesn't matter if it's week 6. So two teams in the Bills and the Jets who have had back-to-back losses. That means this game is pretty meaningful for these teams getting back on the right foot, and also when you look at the division at large. What are your thoughts about this matchup right now as we sit here?
Yeah, I think it's two desperate teams for this win because, look, I think this, and you guys got off to such a great start, and all the narrative is Josh didn't need Diggs and this, that, and the other thing, and then obviously the last 2 weeks have been challenging. The Bills come into New York and lose again, which obviously they were frustrated to lose the opener last year, especially because we lost our quarterback 4 plays in. I think that's going to be a challenge. I don't have to tell you, the New York media is just impossible. And so it's already a storm here, but we lose on right now. I think everyone's between hoping and praying for Devontae Adams, between the fact that this game is now meaningful from a first place because the division's not playing well. I think the stakes are a little higher for the Jets, especially because the New York media. But, I follow a lot. I have a lot of followers on social media, and a lot of them are great Bills fans. And, I can sense the tension growing a little bit up there for y'all.
Yeah, I think this fan base is hungry for a win. This Bills team has been a team that's won the AFC East the last several seasons in a row. When you watch the Bills, whether it's against the Jets or other teams, what comes to mind when you think about the way that this franchise has been put together over the last few seasons?
Well, I think you're incredibly well coached, which is devastating. I think you nailed it at the quarterback slot, which is double devastating because I don't have to remind anybody here, we took a quarterback before you all did. In that draft. I think the defense has been really, honestly, one of the things that's fascinating is you've also been able to overcome injuries. Again, Milano, the corner, I think Oliver's banged up, right now.
Yeah, he is. Yep.
Even though you don't root for injuries, you pay attention to them against your interdivision rivals. And so you've been able to get through a lot of adversity. Look, this Bills team is playing in the era of a Kansas City Chiefs dynasty, right? That I don't have to tell anybody who's listening how insane that one game was a couple years ago. And so, look, Diggs, not only did you lose Diggs, the receiving core is not up to the snuff that you've been historically because, Gabriel's not there as well. And there's a lot to overcome here. I'm a big Dalton Kincaid fan. I was devastated when you drafted him. I thought he'd have a very good career. He's been quietish, right?
He's been quiet to start the season. That's right.
The running game has been better than I expected for y'all a little bit early on. Look, what do I think? I think the GM, the head coach, and the quarterback, when you have that trifecta right, you have success. And there's been no confusion to me in my envy and dismay of why you've been so successful the last 5 years.
We'll be right back on You Heard. Stay tuned. Well, before we let you go, one last question for you. You've done so much throughout your career. You're the co-founder of Resi, Empathy Wines, Vayner Sports, chairman of VaynerX, CEO of Vayner Media at large. What's next for you? What do you have going on right now?
The truth is, back to another sport I love, mixed martial arts. I'm a counterpuncher. I'm more waiting to see what comes at me. I didn't know that I was going to own a pickleball team 4 years ago, but when the opportunity came, I jumped at it. I didn't know that I was going to invest in Facebook and Twitter and all these things when I was running a wine store. But when I saw the opportunity, so back to my prior answer, I like to watch. It's actually why I love the NFL. I think that most people, when they first see the sport, they don't understand it, right?
Yep.
It's a complicated sport. You know very well being around it. A lot of people's first endeavors are kind of okay, but then once it clicks and you understand, like for example, Maddy, just to get nerdy, because I know this is a football platform, I spent 30 minutes this morning watching all the missed blocks my Jets tight ends
Oh
had
my gosh.
in Minnesota. To me, missed blocks by tight ends is not what the average fan is going to be looking at, but as you go down layers of complexity. So I like watching, and that's how I like being as a businessman. I like watching for opportunities, and then I'll strike. So the answer to your question literally is I don't know, but I'll be prepared for it when the opportunity comes.
And there's a lot of beauty in that. I don't know, but hey, I'm out there. I'm seeing what's going on. I'm watching the missed blocks by the Jets team. I love it.
I'm trying to find answers for why our run game is so abysmal right now, which, for Bills fans, they probably remember last year's first game, Brees chopped off a massive run.
You're right.
We were so much more effective last year. We should be better. We made an investment in left tackle. It's just not clicking, and hopefully it gets solved against your boys this weekend, this Monday night. It's going to be a very exciting game. The Jets have played well. It's funny. The Bills have always been coming into a Jets game hot, and we match up well, as you know, against Josh historically, and it's worked out for us. I think we've split the series last couple of years in a time where the Bills have been a much better football team. I'm so burnt by the Jets. I actually am disappointed you guys are coming in a little limpy, like not playing well. It makes me feel like more nervous. I feel like we're not, even though in all these years we figured it out, I feel like we're not going to figure it out this Monday. So I'm holding my breath. I'm hoping for the best. I'm sure you all on your side are as well. But I hope everybody gets through that game with no injuries and everybody keeps on their way.
A must-win game for both teams. Josh is 7-4 against the Jets in his career, but 5 of those matchups have been decided by 7 points or less. So you are so right. The Jets know how to keep it close against a really good quarterback in Josh Allen. We'll see how the game goes, but we want to give you a big thank you for coming on with us to talk about this matchup and what you've been up to. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Maddy. Good luck.
When we return, catch the highlights from this week's press conferences in Soundbite Roundup.
Yeah, just staying together, and I think we have enough guys from this team that were here last year, knowing where we were last year, right? 5-5, and had to win so many games to get into the playoffs, and there's a good perspective, right? Joe talked about, we could have been 0-2 and gotten a 3-game win streak, and now we're feeling on top of the world. But because we started 3-0 and we've lost the last 2 against 2 good teams, you can find yourself questioning things. But we're just sticking together, sticking to the game plan, and again, just trusting the process.
We had a meeting this morning, a leadership council meeting, and I think the main thing was just not to freak out and panic. We are sure of who we are as a team, and obviously there's some things that need to change for us to get the result that we want. But overall, we're staying to our process and we're doing what we have to do. The last couple weeks, obviously, like I said, the result hasn't been there, but I think the DNA and the characteristics of our team have shown up.
Everybody knows it's a production-based business, and when you losing, everything just seems much worse than it is when you winning. The result all the time doesn't speak for how well you do. Sometimes you can play a great game and still lose. And I think we all know that, and we just got to stick to the basic things that we always do, and eventually it'll come, and it always does work itself out at the end. So we just got to just stay focused on what we do and how we play ball, and things will shape out.
Storyline shift almost every week. As soon as teams start overreacting and trying to find too much that's wrong or change too much in any given week, we get distracted from what makes us us. So we got to stick to what we know to be the truth, stick to what we do best.
It's a tough situation to be in, right? When a team fires their coach because you're not sure how they're going to react to that. My sense is they're going to be prepared to go Monday night. So we're going to have to handle every shot that they throw at us and keep getting back up and moving forward.
Welcome back into Buffalo Bills Weekly. The Bills have their third straight away game. This one is against the Jets. The Jets had some shakeup this week. Owner Woody Johnson announced on Tuesday morning that he fired head coach Robert Saleh. Saleh started the season 2-3. Johnson said, "We're just not where we think we should be at this point in the season." There were some big expectations on this offense, Chris, with a quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. Well, through 5 weeks, they rank at the bottom 10 of the NFL, averaging just 18 points per game and have the worst rushing offense in the NFL. What led to Saleh getting fired at this point in the season?
Well, I mean, based on what we're hearing out of New York or New Jersey, I guess, is that he kind of lost the locker room. And I think, look, Saleh was a great defensive coordinator, in his years in San Francisco. And yeah, those guys often elevate to head coaching jobs in this league, but great coordinators don't always make great head coaches. And I think there was a leadership void there with him, and I don't think he cultivated a team atmosphere in the locker room where you really have guys pulling for each other every week out on the field. And there's some individuals on that roster that can kind of pull apart at that team culture as well. And I think it all worked against Saleh in trying to turn this thing around and making them a playoff team. He also had the deck stacked against him a little bit, 6 different quarterbacks in his 3 years.
Yeah, that's a huge number. Saleh was 20-36 and did not make the playoffs since becoming their head coach in 2021. Their defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, will step in as the interim head coach.
Yeah.
When you look at interim head coaches in their first game as a coach, they have a 16-13 record since 2010, according to Fox Sports. This game is not going to be easy for the Bills because you got a guy coming in who the team is going to rally around.
Right, and you're also going to have a Monday night atmosphere in MetLife Stadium, so everybody's going to be charged up for that. So the key for the Bills there is to try to hopefully get up on the Jets early, quiet the crowd, reduce the intensity of the atmosphere. That doesn't mean that the Jets are going to lay down by any stretch, because there usually is a nice performance bump the first game after a change like this. Down the road, I don't know that it's going to help them all that much, because I think end game, they blew it up. Like, Woody Johnson wants better results. I don't know if he's going to get it in the long run, but for Monday night, perhaps.
Chris, let's flip it to Buffalo's offense and what they need to do against this tough Jets defense. They're the second best in the NFL, allowing an average of just 255 points per game. The Bills' offense hasn't been that high-flying offense that we have wanted it to be the last 2 weeks. Offensive coordinator Joe Brady, coming off of his second loss, said, "We've got a lot of things we need to clean up. It didn't matter if we would have won the game against the Texans. We need to clean up a bunch heading into this Week 6 game."
Right, but I think to help Josh the most, obviously pass protection up front, but I think the second thing is we got to reincorporate motion back into this offense. I know running a lot of pre-snap motion is much harder on the road where communication is more challenging for an offense due to the noisy environment, but you got to find a way to reincorporate it into the offense. After 4 games, the Bills were 4th in the league in pre-snap motion usage at over 80% of their snaps. That went away in Week 4 and Week 5. They got to get back to it because it ultimately helps your receivers get open. That with stacks, stack 2 receivers over here to create some built-in separation. You have to do that after what we saw from the offense last week. And one other thing I'll throw in here, in previous matchups with the Jets, particularly down there, they will incorporate a spy for Josh at times, but sometimes they go without a spy. And we've seen instances where Josh gets out on the edge and he's looking to make this giant play down the field rather than take 15 yards of green grass in front of them. knowing how hard it's going to be for the Bills to get yards against this Jets defense, Josh has to take those yards with his legs in this one.
Josh Allen is 7-4 against the Jets in his NFL career. He's lost the last 2 at MetLife. This team as a whole, when we're speaking of the Jets, they know how to keep it tight against a Bills team who's won the AFC East the last several years in a row.
Yeah, like I said, they make them earn it all the way down the field. And one thing that kind of popped out on film in the Vikings game last week in London, the Jets DBs have taken a page out of the Baltimore Ravens book. They will mug the receivers on every single passing play and dare the officials to throw the flag. They know they can't throw flags on every single snap and bog down the game. That's going to make it take 5 hours. So they're super physical and dare the officiating crew to throw flags for defensive holding, pass interference, things like that. I think they may take a similar page out of that book in facing the Bills receiving corps this week.
You can catch the game this Monday, October 14th on ESPN, ESPN2, and ESPN Deportes. Chris will be on the radio with the call, so to hear him and Bills legend Eric Wood, you can listen to WGR 550. We'll see if the Bills can remain at the top of the AFC East. That's where they sit right now. Thank you for tuning in to Buffalo Bills Weekly alongside Chris. I'm Maddy Glab. We'll see you next week.